Okay, so I wanted to ask, what is the sort of changing value of first-party data and closing the loop, finding accountability and investment? How has it changed, and how do you see it?
I think there's a lot happening, Andy, in when we think about the first party data overall as a topic. There's a few uh, major shifts that have happened across the industry. I mean, starting with the whole GDPR and CCPA compliance happening. And then I think most recently in this whole dynamic of everybody being at home, and there's so much data that is powering the current media behaviors, there's been a dramatic shift of people relying more and more in digital channels. The signals have gotten more richer. And the most fundamental shift that has happened recently is the whole Apple IDFA situation that has pushed against the first party data vernacular into the mainstream. I think what has happened is everybody started to realize that there is a significant amount of value to have that information. But historically, there's been a lot about control and how you are entrusted with that information. So when you think about it, the dialogue about, well, Apple doing something like that, is it truly consumer privacy and trust, or is it them creating another walled garden to have their own media and marketing solution kit out in the marketplace? And it also enables companies like Google and Facebook, everybody coming up with saying sunsetting the cookies. Oh no, we can't share our data out. So there is a lot happening in that. And we think that there is value to making sure that if cookies are not there, it doesn't mean the end of effectiveness when it comes to meaningful media and marketing. It's about creating partnerships. So I think the landscape that we have seen change is there is, whereas historically it was about, oh yes, we have to do lookalike modeling and retargeting, and that's in the world of digital. And it would always start with the personas and the design targets. The shift is now both of those dialogues start from the center to say, okay, who is our audience that we're trying to reach? And before we even start going down the big ideas, everything, let's be clear, how can we find them? How can we find them at scale? And how can we address them? And that's a big topic, which is a seismic shift that I would say in the industry.
Let's talk about first-party data from clients of the agency, of brands more broadly, and perhaps of e-tailers in particular. So what's the value there? What's the process of onboarding? Not to get too technical, but and what do you suggest to clients, to e-tailers who have first-party data, that they could make it more actionable, around their marketing and advertising?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Andy. Let's start with the client's first party data, right? Not everybody, we know that not all clients are created equal, and not everybody is sitting on treasure troves of first party data when it comes to having either a phone ID or a really good quality validated email ID as part of their data set. So first and foremost, it's about identifying what is a first party data that can be utilized. And that's not just the CRM database. It's about how many owned assets do we have out there, right? What is the role that our websites, our apps, our communications play? Because that all is first party data from a definition standpoint. Then it's about making sure that if we are working with e-tailers or any extended partners, what is the depth and quality of their data set? The key point is no one has it all. Consumers are not 100% logged and loaded into one ecosystem. So it's about identifying the best complementary sets. How do we make sure that we are reaching the audiences at scale, complementing, combining data sets, making sure that there is minimal to no overlap across the data sets. The quality and the hygiene of the data is reliable. They are refreshing their information more often, and the signals that are coming in are also rich. So it's not about, yes, I have 10 million email IDs in my data set, and by the way, 9 million of them have never even shopped with me for the last a year or so. So it's about how actionable is that data set, how addressable is it, and also what is going to be the heavy lift from creative, custom environment, content development standpoint. How easy it is for the client to execute it versus how difficult it is going to be to execute it. A lot of times what we are seeing is every big e-tailer is coming out with their own content requirements, information architecture, etc. That's a significant heavy lift for clients to create custom solutions for that. So I think my one take would be that instead of creating more friction between a consumer and a brand, we collectively have to think about eliminating that friction and creating a seamless exchange. Yes, people have different behaviors and different expectations across different websites and different e-tailers. The usability, the user flow is different, but it's not about it's not about using that to say, oh, you now need to give me 50 different pieces of content that is only going to work on my environment, because we are also looking at, not just media investment, but also the cost of developing assets for the media investment is going up. So I think from that standpoint, it's about what does the client have, who is the best partner to complement that data set, and then making sure that it's actionable and addressable in a meaningful way, so that we can have scalable content solutions, we can have scalable identities, and also we can make sure that we are reaching those audiences in a good frequency control manner, because you don't want 100 pieces of information from the same client across 10 different websites.
So that's a tall task for the industry and a very ambitious agenda.
Yep.
What are your hopes for the reality of this world to take shape in the next 12 months?
That's a really good question. I think my hope would be, um, the reality of this world is where historically it's always been about this one big idea, this one big campaign that launches, led by a TV screen. The hope and the reality is that it's now going to be a lot more rigorous upfront. It's going not just about creating that 30-second or that 60 or 75-second spot and surround it with other channels. It's going to be about, for lack of a better word, going to start with an Excel sheet, right? It's all about getting down to the table and saying, the audience, the assets, the timelines, the production, the breakdown between the heavy lift between working and non-working, partners, why, what kind of partnerships, measurement and attribution, how are we going to pay off and justify the investment switch and happening, making sure that technology and ad tech are at the table when those big ideas are happening. I see the reality is going to be a lot more collaborative, a lot less silos, and true partnership, coming at it to say, not between this is what I do, this is what you do, but how do people with complementary skill sets come at the table to say, this is what our brand experience, this is what our media experience is going to look like, to make sure we are connecting with the audiences. And I think it's collaboration, it's integration, it's coming with the best intention and best information forward, and everybody doing their homework. So I think that's going to be the reality.